Welcome to Behind the Scenes and Happy New Year's. I am your host, Hector Montalvo. This show is dedicated to asking tough questions for you, the viewers. We bring you their responses and we let you decide. Joining us here today at our MCTV studios, we have Mr. Kevin Thompson, author of Exposing the Corruption in the Massachusetts Family Court. Mr. Thompson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Hector.
Mr. Thompson, it's my understanding that you are writing another book on public corruption. What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I guess the same thing that I've been trying to accomplish with all my books is just to expose corruption that most people are unaware of. I think that the only way that there really will be reform is if more people are aware of it. And I don't think that the mainstream media is doing the job as a watchdog that they should be doing to expose what goes on in our courts.
Does your book have a title?
Right now, the tentative title is The Massachusetts Court System, a Cesspool of Corruption.
Now, why put in all this effort?
Well, right now I'm actually unemployed, so I do have the time, and I think that I think I speak for an awful lot of people who maybe don't have the time or don't have the ability to articulate what is going on in the court system.
Now, skeptics would say that you're only alleging corruption because judges involved in your case ruled against you. How do you respond to those claims?
Well, that's exactly the sort of argument that I've heard before to discredit me, but I'm not alleging corruption simply because the judges ruled against me. I'm alleging corruption because the judges had to defy the law and ignore the facts of the case in order to rule against me. So there's a big difference between simply ruling against me, which is what my critics would certainly allege.
Do you believe your situation is unique, or?
Actually, no. I guess I wish it was unique. The fact is that there are many, many people out there that are getting shafted by the courts and by what goes on in the courts for the self-interest of the court system. Because I've written another book that generated a lot of media attention, I hear from usually every week someone calls me. I don't know whether they get my number from either my website or from other sources from doing a search of me. But I hear from people every week who, I think some of them just want a vent. They just want to explain that they're experiencing the same thing, and some of them ask me for advice, and oftentimes I can't give them what they want to hear, because a lot of them will refer to the law and they'll say, well, they did this and they did that, and I say, well, the bottom line is you can cite all the laws you want, but if the judges aren't held accountable to those laws, then it's a moot point. And the fact is that we have a system where these judges are accountable to no one. I've compared this before. I compare it to what I say is that the Catholic priest scandal has nothing on the betrayals of public trust that are occurring in our court system today. Nothing.
Now, what kind of proof do you have that the judges who you identified as being corrupt are corrupt?
I think the proof is in the detail, and unfortunately, I can't prove it in a 30-second soundbite or even a 30-minute show, and unfortunately, that's what most people at most will give you, which is another reason why I'm writing the book. I can put it all in a book, and someone who does have the inclination to actually read my book and wants to know more, they will get the detail in the book.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you want some details, I guess, the situation with me is I believe that I'm a target. I wrote a book on corruption. I've sued several judges in federal court. I've filed numerous complaints to the Commission on Judicial Conduct. I also have a cable show that I'm producing. And I have a website that exposes corruption. So I know I'm a target among these judges, and what I believe is happening to me is what these judges are doing is they're dismissing my cases illegally before they can succeed on their merits before a jury of my peers. And so what they're doing is they're denying my right, my Seventh Amendment right, with reference to civil cases. They're denying my right to a jury of my peers. And the bottom line is, I know that if my cases were to ever go before those juries, I would win these cases. And for example, in federal court, my case against the judges was dismissed with the claim that the 11th Amendment gives judges the absolute power to commit whatever crimes they want against litigants. Now, that, first of all, defies the law that I referenced to bring it to federal court, which is Title 42, Section 1983, which is violations of civil rights under color of law. It, first of all, violates that, but the 11th Amendment says no such thing. If you read the text of the 11th Amendment, all it says is that a citizen in one state cannot sue a state official in another state. It says nothing about suing state officials in your own state, and that was expanded by judicial fiat, by judges themselves. Congress is the only one that has, the legislative branch is the only branch that has the power to make laws. And the judicial branch, by creatively interpreting these laws, they're doing the same thing. And my thought is that they've sort of got to the point where if they tell a lie long enough and often enough, it eventually becomes precedent-setting case law. And that's what's happening with the judges. I mean, these judges that I sued in federal court should not simply be removed from the bench, they should be behind bars. And this judge basically sat on my case for 2 years so that he could quietly dismiss it after the attention that was generated by the banning of my book would dissipate. My case against Methuen was dismissed with the claim that the First Amendment only applies to speech on matters of public concern, supplemented by the fact-defying claim that reporting workplace harassment in a public school setting and corruption in a union's election process do not qualify as matters of public concern. So that's just 2 cases, and I can go case after case, and you'd be, jaw-dropping reasons why these cases were dismissed, where they had no justification whatsoever. My cases were not dismissed because I incompetently represented myself in court or because of the merits of my case. They were dismissed because these judges were going to prevent me from succeeding in court before a jury of my peers.
What do you believe is the root cause of the corruption that you've experienced?
Well, the root cause is that no one is holding these judges accountable. No one whatsoever. The Commission on Judicial Conduct supposedly holds judges accountable. But if I filed probably 10 to 15 complaints to the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and what you'll get is they'll sit on the case for approximately 6 months to a year, and then you'll get a form letter from them saying that the case was investigated and that no judicial misconduct was found. And if you go to the Commission on Judicial Conduct's website and it says, what constitutes judicial misconduct? It says, violation of the canons of judicial conduct constitutes judicial misconduct. Well, I have judges that, I mean, a first grader would understand, it would be self-evident to them that these judges are committing crimes. As far as the Commission on Judicial Conduct, I actually have some statistics. Now, the thing about the Commission on Judicial Conduct is they try and keep things a secret. So there's very little that you actually can find out. You can't find out about cases, and they claim that their cases are confidential, which I believe they're confidential just so that the general public doesn't know what a sham it actually is. But the Commission on Judicial Conduct, what I have is that there were 1,304 complaints that were docketed over the last 5 years with the Commission on Judicial. That they'll tell you that that's how many were docketed. And of those 1,304 complaints, only 39 of them resulted in any kind of disciplinary action against judges. And of those, 25 of the 39 resulted in nothing more than a private reprimand. And But those statistics don't tell the whole story, because starting in 2006, they started reporting the actual number of cases that were docketed. I mean that were received, and not just the number that were docketed. And if you look at those statistics, the Commission on Judicial Conduct only dockets less than 1 of every 3 complaints that it even receives. And then out of those that they actually docket, they dismiss out of hand, they dismiss 97% of those cases. Now, when you think about it, there are too many negatives to even file a complaint against the judge. Yeah, the judge now, if you file it while the complaint is still active, the judge now has the opportunity to retaliate against you. If you wait until after the case is dismissed, then the Commission on Judicial Conduct throws it out as a complaint of a disgruntled litigant who was just not happy with the results of his case. So basically, you have to file it while the case is still active. And although the judge gets to see what you've said about him and gets to submit a response, you have no access to that. You don't know what the judge is saying. The judge could be saying whatever it takes to excuse his actions, and you can't rebut that.
But so, the FBI is the leading agency that investigates corruption. According to their website, they investigate public corruption. Have you gone to the FBI? Have you filed complaints, grievances with them?
Yes, I have. I actually submitted a 65 complaint to the FBI. Not just the FBI. There are many. You've got the Commission on Judicial Conduct. You've got the FBI. You've got the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. You've got the Attorney General's Office. You've got the ACLU. You've got a lot of agencies that actually are supposed to hold judges accountable. Now, the FBI, I submitted a 65-page complaint to them, which documents all of the crimes committed, judicial crimes committed against me. And they sat on it for a while, and then I received their form letter saying that my complaint was not within their jurisdiction, and that it would be forwarded. That I need to take that up with the same corrupt court system that I claim in my complaint and can prove in my complaint is corrupt from top to bottom. So, and when I got that response, I went to the Department of Justice, because they're supposed to hold FBI agents accountable. And they took it and said, well, this is not within our jurisdiction. We're going to forward this to the FBI. So you've got the Department of Justice forwards my complaint against the FBI to the FBI, and the FBI says that I should take my complaint against the judges in the courts that I say, these judges that are corrupt, to the same corrupt court system. So, and that's what I found is typical of these agencies. Just bounce the complaint from one office to the other in the hopes that you will frustrate the complainant and he'll just go away.
So what hope is there that the people that pay these judges and these government officials to ensure that they're following the rules of the law, how do they get to see this?
I think you have to take the power out of for example, the Commission on Judicial Conduct says that it's an independent agency to hold judges accountable. It's not independent at all. It consists of judges and lawyers that still work as judges and lawyers in the state. And so what I think you need to do is you need to get a commission that's not made up of judges and lawyers, made up of lay people who can actually look at these complaints and administer justice to hold these judges accountable. It's not that complicated to know whether a judge has committed a crime or committed a violation of his code of judicial misconduct. I mean, it's crazy in my case. I mean, one of the codes of judicial conduct says that a judge shall dispense promptly the business of the court. And if you look at my cases, I mean, it's crazy how long judges have sat on cases, like the one in federal court. That U.S. District Court Judge Woodlock sat on my case against the judges for 2 years. And then that was excused by the Court of Appeals with the chief judge of the Court of Appeals compared the 2 years that he sat on my case to a 5-month delay in an unrelated case to say that wasn't a violation.
Well, you've seen lately in the news we've seen the theft of $2 million being stolen from the actual courthouse, which is under investigation. There is someone being charged with that. You've seen the scandal about the probation hiring practices that they've had. You see all of this. Is it time for them to open up to the public? Is it time? I mean, what is it going to take? How do we move forward and reform the judiciary branch? Because everything you've been reading and seeing on television lately has been about the judiciary.
Well, I'll tell you, it's long overdue. It's long overdue. And when you say the issue with the probation department, I mean, these people are just, they're arrogantly aware that they can do whatever they want. And even in the legislative branch, when you look at, the Judiciary Committee of the legislative branch, it's made up of all lawyers. They're all lawyers. I mean, how is that not a conflict of interest? I mean, right now, our state senator from Methuen, Senator Baddour, according to the website the other day, he's now going to be the chair of this committee. Well, he's also a lawyer. He also works in family court matters. So, so what do you think the chances are that there's going to be any type of real reform in that system, or never mind that, but just reform of the type of accountability in the judicial system? It's not going to happen unless people that are outside that system, unless people like you and I can generate that public outrage and embarrass them enough that they have to change, because they will not change on their own. There's too much money to be made based on the way things are done now. So it's not going to happen unless somehow we are able to, you and I and other people out there are able to awaken the masses to what is going on, because the general public has no idea how corrupt it truly is. They have no idea. If I took what's happened to me and went to Hollywood and tried to pitch a story based on what's happened to me for a movie of the week, it would be rejected as too far-fetched, too unbelievable. And I think these judges know that, and they know that people won't give much more than a passing, some minor attention to the issue, and then they're off to another topic.
What would be their motive? What would be their motive?
The motive is very, very easy. There is a tremendous amount of money to be made in the courts based on what they're doing now. Inefficient days in court generate billable litigation. As far as family court goes, and I've said this many times, my case should have ended within 5 minutes of me walking into court. The judge should have had one question for the two of us as parents. Do either of you intend to prove that the other parent is unfit? The answer to that question would have been no, and 50-50 custody should have been the ruling, since both of us wanted to be significantly involved in raising our son. But if that were the rule and not the exception, then billable litigation would be significantly reduced. The Child Support Services Department would need to be downsized, if not eliminated. The domestic violence industry would lose the customers that it gets with the incentive for mothers to make up false allegations as a court strategy, which happens all the time. The state would lose federal funding that it receives every time a child support order every time they order a child support. The state would also lose its cut that it gets from all the money transferred from litigants to lawyers in the state. And radical feminist groups would lose the uneven playing field that they've worked so hard to gain in family court, where men are all violent, evil monsters and women are all victims. So there's a lot of special interest groups out there. There are a lot of hypocrites, and I refer to them as hypocrites because they know exactly what they're doing, and their interests have nothing to do with the interests of the children and everything to do with the fact that it makes them money.
Are you opposed to cameras in the courtroom?
I'm not opposed to that at all. I think that cameras should be in the courtroom, because it's interesting that the courts will say, oh, well, we're here to protect the privacy interests of the parents of the family. Well, I think most fathers and most parents would agree that they will, they'll sacrifice their privacy in the courtroom for privacy in their home, which is what is being intruded on by these know-it-all judges, these politically appointed hacks, who believe that they know better about your kids than you do. And I want to make one disclaimer right now, because I'm referring to it fathers, but mothers can also be victims of this. I
was going to say that.
And because I have seen it, and the ironic thing with the women who I have seen who have been victims of the system is, you might think that there must be something wrong with these women who lose custody of the children in a court system that awards custody to them 80% of the time. What I have found is exactly the opposite. I have heard from mothers whose favored position in court turned on a dime when they expressed outrage at the court's attempt to push them towards a sole custody arrangement, where they said, who's getting divorced here, me or you? And then quickly, if they thought that they could manipulate the father in that situation, then quickly it spun around, because they don't care who, as long as one of them is the sole custodial parent and has all the power and the other one doesn't. That's what generates power. That's what generates money. That's what generates more and more trips into court.
Now, you mentioned during our discussion, you mentioned child support also. What about restraining orders? Are those, they're part of the judiciary. They're actually passed out by the judiciary. Is there money incentives behind those particular orders?
Well, I think a lot of the restraining orders are a tactic used in family court for, especially for mothers, to secure the house, the children, and a large percentage of the future income, because that's like the what do they call it? I mean, that's so commonly used. Lawyers will basically advise their client, well, get a restraining order, allege something. It'll get him out of the house. Now you will get everything, because the default ruling in court is that if the two parents can't get along, the mother gets custody. So what do you think the advice is going to be for the lawyers? Even if the parents do get along, or even if they can get along, it's in the mother's best interest, if she wants all the power and she wants to get a child support amount every month that's well above what it actually costs to support the children, then it's to her advantage to maintain conflict with the father. How is that in the best interest of children? Whereas if both parents go in there and the default is 50-50 custody, and I'll tell you something about that, because I know there's a lot of things with shared parenting, and a lot of people are pushing that. We already have shared parenting, and according to the law, we already have shared parenting in this state. Mass General Law, Chapter 208, Section 31 says, when making a determination of custody, the rights of the parent shall, in the absence of misconduct, be held to be equal. That's what it already says as the law. Well, judges get around that by alleging misconduct of any father who resists the court's one-size-fits-all arrangement of custody to the mother. So that's where the misconduct comes. And the fact is that I believe that if the two parents do not get along, it's better that they do have 50-50 custody, where one person doesn't have all the power, so that when I have my son, I have an independent relationship with him, independent of whatever whims and malice of my son's mother. And when she has him, she deals with whatever common expenses, we share those. When I have my son, I support him when he's with me. When she has him, she supports him.
Who's your favorite corrupt judge? Do you have one?
The judge who I think is pure evil, and actually the quote that I put under this particular judge is, the criminal confronts us with the complexities of radical evil, but only the hypocrite is evil to the core. I think I messed that up a little bit, but it's something like that. And I would say that that judge is, my most favorite corrupt judge is Judge Peter DeGangi. I know you might say that you might have thought that I would say Judge Manzi, but I really believe that Judge Manzi has good intentions, believe it or not. I think that she wants to do the right thing. I just, quite frankly, think that she's incompetent, and I think her own personal biases get in the way of decisions that she should be making as a judge. Whereas DeGangi is just, in my opinion, pure evil, that he's just a sadistic jerk who gets off at destroying families because it's just his arrogance that he can get away with it.
Should there be better training for them? Could that be part of the problem?
I don't know whether it's so much I mean, if I had to put the money somewhere, I would put the money into a better mechanism to hold these judges accountable. And they are. I mean, they are out of control.
Let me just quickly state that you are watching Behind the Scenes. I am your host, Hector Montalvo. If you know anybody out there that's experienced government corruption, send us an email at thehectormontalvoshow@yahoo.com. You can also visit our Facebook /Behind the Scenes with Hector Montalvo, or visit YouTube keyword Cableman 411. Mr. Thompson, with all with your book writing and so on, what suggestions do you have to reform the judiciary system?
Well, like I said, I think that I would begin with putting an agency in place that has nothing, does not consist of judges, that does not consist of lawyers. It consists of lay people who have no connection, maybe even something almost like a jury, like a grand jury, a jury type of thing where people rotate in and get to look at these complaints that are filed against judges and have them make the decision, almost like a jury trial on the complaints for judicial conduct, because I mean, it's so blatant and so egregious and so self-evident, these crimes that are committed. And I would also, I know Massachusetts is different than some other states where, you know, some other states they actually, you know, in Massachusetts we appoint the judges, and in some other states they elect them. And I think that would probably be a start. I don't know whether that would have too much of an effect, because, you know, you see all the time where politicians who aren't necessarily the most honorable continue to get elected year after year. So I don't know how much of an effect that would have. And I know as far as like we tried to, and you know, we tried to get Senator Cream voted out, since she's the head of the Judiciary Committee that's been blocking family court reform. And that, what good did that do? They still voted her in. So enough people don't know what's going on to, and guys like us, fathers and people who are activists, we just don't have the money that some of these other high-powered agencies have that are making millions and billions off of the situation as it currently exists.
So the way you see the system, what advice do you have for any viewers out there, whether they're watching us on MCTV or they're watching us on YouTube or Facebook? What advice do you have to them? I
would tell them to let everybody they know what's going on in the court system, and maybe get it out so that more people are aware of it. There's just not enough people that are aware of what goes on. So if more people who are victimized by the court system come out and talk about it, and put pressure on the mainstream media, the newspapers, to actually cover these topics, it amazes me how many crimes are committed in the courts that the mainstream media will not cover. I mean, I've brought so many stories to the Tribune, for example, that they won't cover it. They were like, in fact, when my book was banned, they were the only newspaper that wouldn't report on that my book was banned. I mean, I was on Fox News, MSNBC. They did articles in the Globe, the Herald, the Lowell Sun. The Tribune wouldn't report on it. So I have no idea what's going on there. Although some people have suggested that the reason why the mainstream media doesn't get involved is because of judicial whim. That they're afraid of being retaliated against by the judges, because they rely on those judges for access to the courts. And certainly if someone files a libel lawsuit against them, the judges can make that go away very easily. Like in my situation, I filed a libel lawsuit against two sociopaths in the newspaper that they run. And that went away. Whereas the Boston Herald was retaliated against by a libel lawsuit against the Boston Herald went forward.
Well, you know, there's a lot that needs to be done. I want to thank you for coming in today. I want to thank my crew. I want to thank the staff at MCTV, and I want to thank you, the viewers at home, for watching. Join us next time as we go behind the scenes to ask the tough questions, bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Thank you for watching.